So the day has finally come, one that I didn't really think was probably going to happen, and many others too, in which we are talking about Frosthaven Digital. Quite a sight to behold to try and get this massive box into a physical video game. Today, we're going to be taking a look. First off, a big thank you to Arc and Snapshot Games for sponsoring this video, and I'm happy to announce that the game will be coming to early access on Steam on the 31st of July this year, so not far away at all. If you'd like to wishlist the game, there will be a link down in the description and also in the top pinned comment for you to be able to go to Steam and wishlist it ahead of time. They did sponsor this video, but on the condition that I could say whatever I liked, although we know probably how I will feel about it. I think it was important for me to maintain my integrity there, so they did give me the ability to say what I wanted, so I really appreciate that. This will be a spoiler-free video, so you do not need to worry about anything if you are playing the physical game and you're worried about me spoiling anything. I won't be doing that in this video. Likewise, if you're planning to play the digital version, we won't be covering anything that is considered a spoiler from the physical game in this video. So you might be wondering, what is Frosthaven if you've maybe played Gloomhaven before? Well, it is the kind of spiritual successor or sequel to that game. It doesn't follow on necessarily narratively, so you don't need to have played Gloomhaven to enjoy Frosthaven at all, but it very much builds on the mechanics and it kind of brings in more advancedness to those mechanics. So the classes are considered to be a little bit more tricky, a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more advanced in the way that they play. Lots more interesting things going on. Also, there are crafting mechanics that are brought into the game. There are potion brewing, alchemy elements that are brought into the game, and that all fits under this umbrella of the Outpost Phase, which is the big addition really here, which is that instead of you kind of going into the town and having the town already there like it was in Gloomhaven, in Frosthaven you are very much building your own town or building the outpost of Frosthaven, which allows you to choose the order in which you build buildings, choose the order in which you upgrade things, and events and things like that will all play into this. So it's a very much more developed aspect of the game, as well as of course more difficult scenarios, more complex scenarios, more interesting fun scenarios, and a branching narrative as well that branches quite a bit more, I would say, than in the original game Gloomhaven. So what can you expect in the early access version of Frosthaven that launches on the 31st of July? Well, there's going to be more than 35 scenarios to play through across what they're calling Act 1 and Act 2 of the game. You have all of the starting classes there with all of the cards available all the way up to level 9, I believe, as well as potentially there's going to be some unlockable classes as well, although I haven't had that confirmed yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if you saw at least a handful more classes than just the starting ones. And then also you've got the Outpost Phase there with the crafting, and the alchemy is there. I don't know about whether or not you can fully upgrade the outposts at this stage, but there is a lot there to play with, and certainly plenty of hours of content there in the early access window to be able to enjoy the game as it is, definitely. Now, I've managed to spend a good amount of time over the last couple of weeks playing the game, and I will say that this game just looks incredible. I think the art style has really grown on me actually over time. At first, I was a little bit unsure about the bright colors that they were using. It just seemed a little bit too much to me. But actually, when you are in a scenario and the animations are going and the environments are there, it actually all weaves together really, really nicely. And I think, yeah, the game looks great. It's clearly AA graphical quality and fidelity here, which means that if you are looking for that kind of more video gamey experience, it's certainly there. And I think you'd probably forget that you're actually kind of playing a board game at times because it just looks that good to me. Also, the menus are clear, and the outpost screen as well is really vibrant and looks great. I'm really excited to be able to build more buildings in there, get to see the evolution of the outpost over time when you start to upgrade the buildings as well, build up the walls for Frosthaven and stuff like that. It just looks really nice, and it's great touch because it was something that in the board game was very satisfying, putting the stickers on the board and seeing it grow. And it's great to see it's going to grow like that here. And they haven't skimped in this area at all. I think it looks really, really good. And it feels like a proper hub for your party to come back to and be able to go to the merchant, go to the alchemist, go to the craftsman, and do all of those little tasks that you need to do in a very clean way. So yeah, big thumbs up from me on that, as well as the world screen. I think looks great as well, where you go to select your quests, and that will also add over time. So when you start to complete quests, you'll see that you'll uncover things. So if you are used to the sticker system that was in Frosthaven Digital, you'll notice that those will come through as well as you start to complete those scenarios. So that map also kind of gets to build out. So you're not losing those elements which the board game had, which I thought were really, really neat. I really like what they've done with the sound in this game as well. The abilities sound weighty when they should, and kind of in line with their effects and what they do, and with the animations as well, because the animations are so good. It all kind of hangs together really, really well. And if you close your eyes, you can kind of almost guess the class just because of how kind of distinctive some of these sounds are for some of the kind of abilities that are in the game. So you can absolutely kind of just guess what the class is if you close your eyes, which I think is always a really, really good indicator that they spent that extra level of time on the quality of that kind of bit there and the feeling of playing a class. Also, they've added some ambient sounds to the environments, which is nice. Just, you know, if you're in kind of like if you're near the sea, then you're going to get the waves and those kinds of sounds. If you're up a mountain, you're going to get wind and snow sounds and stuff like that. Just a little bit to kind of immerse you a little bit more, which I think is just a nice touch. They have added some new music as well, and the new music they've added is really, really good, actually. I really like it. They are still using some of the original Gloomhaven tracks, which, as somebody who has spent 2,000 hours listening to some of that music, I could probably do with a couple of new tracks just to freshen it up and mix it up. Don't get me wrong, they're great tracks, and I think the majority of the community like them, but I think it's one of those situations where, yeah, we just need a little bit of variety in there. So hopefully that kind of thing gets added later. The Fortella narration is also a really nice addition, and I think a great use of all of that audio. It hasn't been fully implemented yet, so it kind of comes in and out. And sometimes I think it kind of chops in a little bit awkwardly at times, but clearly they need to do a little bit of cleaning up here and obviously add it all, and it won't be quite as simple as just dragging and dropping the audio in, I think.
But a fight means people, and if there are people, then the town must be close. You hear more, a scream, the crash of steel against stone, a deep, earthy growl.
And on the performance, I didn't have a single issue. I didn't have a single crash with my experience playing the game. I do have a very high-end PC, so take that with a pinch of salt if you're on a lower or mid-tier system. However, the game saves at the end of every single turn, so even if you were to have some kind of issue, the good news is the game is saving incredibly regularly, so you can just load the game back up and be straight back in the game very quickly. So even if you were to experience an unfortunate crash, it's probably not going to set you back much time at all. So what are my general impressions? Well, this is an early access title in the truest form for me, in that it's not just missing content, but also polish, and it has some bugs in there as well. Unlike maybe some other games that launch into early access with a very polished but small amount of content, there's a good amount of content here, but there are bugs kind of all over the place here. Although a lot of these bugs aren't game breaking, there are several small things that do pop up regularly, such as abilities not functioning quite right, enemy focus and movement bugs, enemy stat bugs, certain tactical perks not activating correctly as well. These types of issues might go unnoticed on lower difficulty levels, or if you're an inexperienced player and you don't know how things work. But those of us who know the game well will find these slightly frustrating, especially on higher levels of difficulty. In fact, I wouldn't recommend playing above veteran difficulty right now because of this. The fine margins needed when you're playing on higher difficulty are kind of very hard to manage here when everything is not functioning exactly as you're expecting it or as it should. Sure, you can redo turns, which, you know, if something goes a little bit wrong, you can just redo a turn and understand that, okay, that's what's going to happen there. I think maybe you might get a little bit frustrated with that. But the good news is that Frosthaven is a much more difficult game in general over Gloomhaven anyway. So even if you are somebody who's coming from Gloomhaven and feeling pretty sort of confident in yourself, I will say you'll probably still find standard quite tricky, and the classes are hard to learn. You can't just pick up a lot of them and just get good very quickly. I think yeah, there's going to be a lot of people learning the game for the first time, and the learning curve is pretty steep with this game, I would say. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for the majority of players. There's also been some reworking of the in-scenario UI elements to do with taking your turns and the order of actions in places that have, in my opinion, taken a little bit of a step back from Gloomhaven Digital, at least currently. You can tell that they're putting a real active effort into simplifying and cleaning up what was a pretty busy and off-putting interface in Gloomhaven Digital. But in doing that, some key information, such as innate monster abilities, are actually hidden behind a keyboard prompt now, which I think is a little bit frustrating at times, because at a glance you can't see that information that you want. I think there's a balance that needs to be struck, and the old version certainly wasn't perfect. So I'm happy that the developers are trying to find better solutions to this, but it does need some work for sure. This won't be an easy task because most classes in Frosthaven do have custom elements to their UI and things that they need quick access to. Some classes though, such as the Blinkblade and the Gemini, I think have been done really, really well, and the UI is perfect. While others at the moment, such as the Drifter, are just not quite there for me to be able to min-max my XP, for example, by seeing the tracks on the cards. The good news though is that it is clearly on their radar, and they are listening and responding to feedback, which is pretty much all we can ask at this stage during early access. And again, it's early access, so there are going to be bumps along the way. Let's also talk a little bit about the general direction here. This is definitely trying to be a video game first, and it's going to try and cast off its board game chains when they seem unnecessary. This means that things that can be automated will be, things that can be faster will be, and that rules will be simplified to better serve the medium of the video game and the online co-op that they're trying to create here. And while I think a lot of that is also true from Gloomhaven Digital, it's in Frosthaven Digital that we will see those changes have the biggest effect. Certain classes will play differently, and some masteries might be harder to do. But I do support the overall goal here of to simplify and streamline the game so that more people can enjoy Frosthaven. The goal of being able to complete a scenario and outpost phase in 20 to 30 minutes rather than 3 hours is a noble one if you ask me. I think Frosthaven Digital is trying to be its own thing, which in my opinion is the right thing to do. It should play to its strengths and a wider audience, and not feel shackled to the physical rule set. Who knows, maybe one day we might even see a digital exclusive class, which I actually think would be pretty neat. So to wrap things up, Frosthaven Digital has the right foundations, I think, to be my next favorite game. I said I spent 2,000 hours in Gloomhaven Digital, and I think I could quite comfortably spend even more here. The wider depth of class design in this game, the wealth of replay value just because of the different branching paths you can take, the difficulty being much harder here, I would say, as well, compared to Gloomhaven. I mean, there's no doubt here that if this is fully realized, this will give me even more content and even more fun than Gloomhaven Digital has given me. So should you consider the early access version of the game? Well, if you love the Haven games as much as me, I think you'll be able to look past a lot of the bugs and polish issues. You're just going to want to support the developers anyway, because you want to see the game realized, and also you just want to scratch that itch of killing enemies and leveling up with new classes that you haven't been able to in a digital format before. However, if you can't deal with those rough edges, or you were hoping to speed run the campaign solo and get through the content really quickly, you might want to wait a little bit until some more content and some more updates roll through. If you are playing co-op though, and you're going to be playing very infrequently, it could be that by the time you get to the end of that Act 2, they've actually added the content into the game for all we know. I mean, Frosthaven's a massive game and it takes a long time to play. So there's plenty here in the early access to keep us busy, I would say. And I know that a lot of us like to theory craft and run new characters and change things up each time we play anyway. So there's plenty of replay value with what we're going to get. So there we have it. There's my first impressions of Frosthaven Digital, a game with so much potential that I think we're all kind of willing on to succeed. Thank you again to Arc Games and Snapshot Games for this early preview and for sponsoring this video. Don't forget the game comes out on the 31st of July and you can wishlist the game now on Steam using the link in the pinned comment and in my description as well. And of course, I will be live streaming the game hopefully very soon in the week of the early access launch and probably on the early access days as well. So make sure to go to twitch.tv/ManageRequest and follow so that you'll get notified when we go live with that. But apart from that, I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.